Hello, and welcome back to Suzerain with the Republic of Swordland, and today, it's time for the press release. Alright, here we are. It was the morning of Livia's trial, and hordes of reporters were gathered in front of the state courthouse. Peter, Lucian, and I stood by the entrance. Lucian had helped break the news of my secretary's arrest. Now the media was beginning to question exactly how Rumberg agent had been able to infiltrate the Marine Palace. It was time for me to deliver my explanation. A podium with a bank of microphones awaited us on the courthouse steps. Peter looked uncertain. I told him I would be doing all the talking today. Remember what we talked about, Mr. President? How could I forget? I was about to blame my best friend for a scandal that would otherwise shatter the administration. Peter hadn't said a word to me since I broke the news to him in my office. Together we stepped behind the podium. The reporters clustered around us and started shouting questions. Thank you for coming. As you are aware, Ilana Vance, the Rumberg spy who posed as my secretary, is currently on trial for espionage. Rest assured, the traitor shall be brought to justice. However, the fact remains that she should never have been allowed to infiltrate our administration in the first place. Let's throw him full under the bus, like we said. That she did can be directly traced to the carelessness of one man, Peter Vectorn. The journals gasped and murmured. Peter turned to me, his mouth hanging open. Oh, man. Mr. Vectorn's recklessness, to say nothing of his betrayal of Swordish values, has disgraced my administration. Therefore, the Vice President has tendered his resignation, effective immediately. The clamor of reporters was growing louder. Peter seemed to shrink behind the podium, his charisma failing him at last. That's it, then. No getting back from this. The reporters were becoming hard to ignore. One woman in the front row looked particularly insistent. Mr. Vectorn? I will be answering all questions on the Vice President's behalf. President Rain, were you implying that Mr. Vectorn and the covert agent posing as your secretary were engaging in intimate relations? Yes. Were you aware of this when it was happening? No, I was not. Lucian interjected. Neither the President nor the Vice President will be taking any more questions, thank you. The reporters reluctantly dispersed. Lucian, Peter, and I looked at each other for what seemed like an eternity. Finally, Peter lowered his eyes. I guess I'll go to the palace and start packing my things then. Goodbye, Peter. I watched Peter descend the courthouse stairs to his car, alone. A shame about your friend, Mr. President, but it appears you will make it out of this unscathed. Of course, there's now the matter of replacing both your secretary and your vice president. Well, you're a little too old to be my secretary, Lucian. Very funny, sir. We walked back to the stairs to the courthouse to watch the rest of the trial. And there we go. We've done it. She served as president when she was arrested after her identity was uncovered by the state investigation. She's being held in Antel Rock prison. Oh, well. Yes, I've looked at that. Cabinet. Peter Vectorn. In 1956, he was involved in a huge scandal that led to his dismissal as vice president. According to reports, Vectorn had an intimate relationship with a foreign spy who had infiltrated the administration and was blamed for leaking classified information. He was dismissed from his post by Anton Rain shortly after the scandal broke. Rumberg infiltrated Marine Palace. President Secretary arrested. Breaking news from the Marine Palace. President Secretary Livia Suno has just been revealed to be a spy from Rumberg. More details are forthcoming, but it appears the agent, whose real name is not yet known. I announced it. actually, managed to get past the palace staff's stringent background checks and obtain the confidential information from which the Reign administration. The president has taken swift, decisive action to remove her from her position and to bring her to justice. President innocent in spy scandal. At a press conference in front of the Holster State Courthouse, President Anton Reign vindicated himself in the recent Marine Palace intelligence leak. He revealed that Vice President Peter Vectorn was responsible for both hiring Rumberg spy Lillian Vance, aka President's Secretary Livia Suno, and disclosing sensitive information to her. Thankfully, with the respect of Vance and the removal of Vectorn from office, the Swordish government is secure once more. Man, that's 2 amazing propaganda pieces in a row. Swordland today is on fire. Man, maybe I should have just given them, like, complete ownership. Because, man, with how well they've been doing, this is the best propaganda they've put out yet. Like, this sort of stuff. It's amazing. President's secretary arrested for treason. Livia Suno, secretary to President Anton Reign, was arrested yesterday following an investigation that revealed her to be a covert agent from Rumberg. Her trial is scheduled to begin in the next several days. In the meantime, the question of how an enemy spy was able to infiltrate the Palace on such a high level remains. President Reign has announced that he will soon be holding a press conference to address this potentially brewing scandal. Okay, so that came out before the press conference. And I'm presuming that also came out before the press conference. Well, these two both came out after the press conference. Reign pins spy scandal blame on Vectorn. Faced with an intelligence leak that could irreplaceable damage his administration, Anton Reign passed the buck to hapless VP Peter Vectorn, who was forced to resign during a press conference on the courthouse steps today. He accused Vectorn of hiring presidential secretary and Rumberg spy Livia Suno without a proper background check, and even hinted that two were carrying an affair. His dismissal of Vectorn may satisfy some, but we are duty-bound to get to the bottom of this scandal. The thing is, I actually told the truth. Like, all that is actually completely accurate. It's just, well, it's completely accurate. I did throw my friend under the bus. Selection of a new vice president. It was here, the day I'd been dreading since Peter's resignation. At the entrance to my office, my new secretary, Sylvia, took my hat and coat. She was a matrone woman in her 40s. She had a spotless background, assisting various Marine Palace officials. Replacing Livia had been easy, but replacing my vice president would be difficult. Swordish law dictated that if a vice president failed to complete his term, new candidates were to be put forward by the members of the cabinet. After much deliberation, the list had been narrowed down to 3. Lucia Gallade, followed by Gloria Torre and Albin Clavin. It was up to me to decide who would fill Peter's shoes. I wanted to chat with them one-on-one before making my decision. I just begun to settle at my desk when I heard a knock at the door. Lucien entered and perched on the chair across from me. Sir? Alright, Lucien, you're one hell of a strategist, but why should I make you VP? It's precisely in my capacity as strategist that I've evaluated the experience and capabilities of your potential vice presidents. Objectively, I am by far the most qualified candidate. I would advise you not only to think about our long history together, but also the many crises I have helped shepherd you through. I won't say much beyond that. I believe my work first speaks for itself. Well, you're such a valuable strategist. I don't know if I can afford to lose you in that capacity. As vice president, my ability to serve you in this administration will only increase. Lucien got up in his chair. I expect you will make the right decision. He left my office. Just a minute later, there was another knock at the door, and Gloria Torre came. Mr. President, I must say I was not surprised at all when my name was put forward. So, Glory, tell me why I should pick you. To put it simply, what I bring to the table is years of experience. I've been a member of the Assembly for almost 20 years, and I spent 7 years as a speaker. This alone speaks for itself. And as you know, I'm also a spokesperson of the party, as well as the leader of the conservative wing. You can see where I'm getting at. You liked my reform proposal, Miss Torre. Why would I pick you as VP? This would be your chance to make amends with the party, Mr. Reign. I will be blunt. Being the leader of the conservative wing means that if I am your vice president, we would have more votes. This would allow us to pass bills far more easily, especially if those bills are aligned to my bloc's causes. I will think about it. I want you to know that I value order over everything else, Mr. President. Being the Speaker of the Assembly requires principles, nerves like steel, and determination to uphold proper conduct. You can expect to see the same as my Vice Presidency. I'm not so sure. Think about the message it would send. The first woman Vice President Sordlin. No, the first woman Vice President in the whole continent. What support you would lose among traditionalists, you would gain tenfold among Swordish women. I mean, I've already been doing that, hopefully, from giving them rights, but there's much to gain from selecting me, Mr. President. I believe you will make the right choice. That will be all for now. Thank you. Thank you. I wish you a nice day, Mr. President. Look, I don't care about getting you on my side, whatever. Gloria made her way out. A minute later, there was another knock at the door. This time it was Alvin Clavin's turn. Greetings, Mr. President. It's a great honor to have been chosen as a candidate. Really terrific. I will be straightforward. Why should I pick you? As you know, I represent the reformist wing of the party. What Sordlin needs today is not only a catch-up to our modern neighbors, but to surpass them. I believe we can do that. No, I'm sure. However, this will only be possible if we set aside our differences and unite as one. That's the outlook I wish to bring to the position Vice President. So that Sordlin can excel and soar to new heights. Very idealist. I like it. Thank you. The fact is, I am the Vice President. Reformist members of our party will be more likely to support you and your causes. This will smooth the passage of bills and help move our administration or country forward in record time. That makes sense. And now what this country needs is more dynamic, youthful leadership. Look at you, President Rain. You became the youngest member of the Assembly and completely rejuvenated Swedish politics. I want to do the same. We need to be able to take risks to make gains, and that is only possible with a forward-looking perspective. There, I've stated my case. I trust your judgment. Everyone said they trust my judgment. That is all for now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Albin got up and left. I leaned back in my chair, thinking back about the pros and cons of each of my vice presidential candidates. I could almost hear Peter's voice in my head, laughing at the absurdity of my situation. But of course, he wasn't there. Well, those are my options. I was sitting in my office. I looked at the clock. 2:26. It was almost time for my appointment for Sierra on women's rights. There was a knock at the door. Sierra entered the room with folders in her hand. The door did not close behind her. Monica entered the room and stood next to Sierra. Mr. President, Anton, before we start, I just wanted to thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I've been dreaming about this ever since I volunteered with the Swordish League of Women. I can't believe the moment's finally here. I think both of you together could finally bring change to Sordlin. I hope you're right. Sierra sat down on a chair and laid down the folder she was holding. First off, Mr. President, I wish to thank you for pushing a decree on establishing gender equality in education. You know, this is something I've been trying to accomplish since my appointment as minister. The situation in the public schools was disturbing for me. With that said, we still have a long way to go before Swordish women are able to enjoy the same rights and privileges as men, or even as their counterparts in Acacia and United Cortana. We've been lagging behind on this for decades, Anton. And this isn't only a moral issue. I've seen enough revolutions in the world to understand the main driver of any change: money. She flipped the folder open and started pulling out documents. In United Cortana, law dictates that women earn the same wages as men in their respective fields. My research shows that this led to a 15.5% increase in productivity. You could say this had a direct influence on their superpower status. Acacia passed laws ensuring maternity leave rights, child day care centers, and tax deductions for working families. In turn, they experienced a 12.6% productivity boost and a flourishing economy. Both countries also have significantly lower infant mortality rates, a statistic I believe is directly linked to improved status of women. Our administration successfully managed to pull Sordlin back from the brink of economic ruin. She leaned back in her chair. So, am I asking why stop there? Why not improve our economy and modernize our society at the same time? It's only logical. Monica handed me one of the documents. It had a list of bullet points on it. The two of us talked it over, and these are the measures we believe are most urgently needed. I let my eyes wander over the list. Alright, criminalizing domestic violence. I shouldn't have to tell you how crucial that is. It is utterly unbelievable that in this day and age, Swordish men are legally allowed to beat their wives. I agree, it's a travesty. I'm happy we're on the same page. And incidents are especially high within Bluish communities. I would also advocate for setting up a special domestic violence task force and collaborating with Bluish women's rights organizations. Monica looked at her strangely. Are you sure there's something we ought to focus on? The Bloods are different. They have their own rules. Monica, I'm surprised at you. We can't let women suffer under the patriarch, no matter their ethnicity. We should lift all Swordish women, and Bloods included. We can discuss the particulars once the law is passed. Support for working mothers. Sierra nodded. It simply isn't fair that women in workforces are punished for having children. Remember what I told you about Janice, my friend who basically got fired for becoming pregnant? That would never happen to a man. Paid maternity leave and state-subsidized daycare centers could be a key to keeping more mothers employed. It's true. Having children never hindered my career prospects. It shouldn't hinder women either. Exactly. Moving on. Equal treatment in the workforce. That's an easy one. Right now, Swordland has one of the continent's largest pay gaps between men and women. We need legislation ensuring that a woman doing the same job as a man is paid the same wage. We could also introduce quotas to get more women into positions of power, in the assembly, for instance, or on the boards of corporations. Eventually, narrowing the pay gap is a far more pressing issue, as it would bring financial independence to countless lower-income women. Sierra, we never talked about this, but I always thought that with more women in power, higher status for all women would naturally follow. Women are starving because they don't make a living wage. That's a damn sight more important than your friend Janice being passed over for a promotion. I don't see a problem with quotas, but tackling the pay gap is much more urgent. Monica gritted her teeth. Thank you, Mr. President. I mean, I'm sorry, but I think she's just right. I can't, come on, they need to live. Like, as she said, starving to death is a bit more big. That covers all subjects. What are your thoughts so far? You've made a good case for all of these changes. Thank you. If we can pull this off before the elections, the Reign administration will make history. Let's talk about how to proceed. I want to establish a commission for women's rights in Swordlands with me as its head. Our goals shall be passing and implementing a set of laws to solve the problems we just discussed. As a commission spokeswoman, my responsibility will be to make speeches and organize fundraisers. I'll be the face of the movement while Sierra handles the groundwork. If I can show that the First Lady is behind this movement, many women will feel encouraged. Sierra gestured down at her outfit. Especially those who aren't keen on pantsuits. The organization's name will be Commission on the Status of Women. It's gonna be damn hard getting your laws past the Assembly. I know, but even a watered-down version would be better than nothing. Mr. President, I know we've had a friction in the past, but this has nothing to do with the failed education reform. This is a completely separate topic, and it should be handled as such. One more thing to consider before making a decision. This could help silence any of the public's lingering questions regarding your former vice president and the Olivia Suno affair. Anton, I'm not completely naive. I know what you're proposing would have its downsides. But every time I look at her daughter, I think about how I'd do anything to grant her a better future. I know you would too. Just like you told me all those years ago. I hope you make the right decision. We both do. Sierra was looking studiously at a scratch on my desk. She blinked and turned back to us. That's right, Mr. President. They rose from their seats expectantly. I took a few minutes to think. I will approve the creation of the commission and support your bill in the Assembly. Monica turned to her. That's all the excitement you can muster? We did it. You did it. Monica hugged Sierra. She smiled uncomfortably. It's not over yet, Monica. The true battle's in the Assembly. We'll celebrate once that's over with. I'll start gathering names for the commission tonight. Sierra started collecting her documents. She and Monica headed towards the door. Monica paused before leaving. I love you, Anton. I'll see you at home. I could hear Monica and Sierra talking excitedly to each other as the door closed behind them. I looked out my window over the city of Holsword. It was a clear day outside. Woo! Let's go. Let's keep things rolling. She became the spokesperson for Commission for Human or Women's Rights in 1957. Alright. The vacant position of vice president is waiting to be filled. The vice president position remains vacant after the events of the scandal and is to be filled by a capable person that the administration and party can trust. Several options have been laid out by the cabinet, and we need to make a decision immediately. Well, We're not going for Gloria. That's the obvious one. Sorry. You've angered me. Get out. The real question is Lucian or Albin. Because I've worked closely with Albin in the past. We worked together, working to push that bill through, working on all that. But Lucian has been very useful. He's a very smart person. And he was the one that really helped find the spy in the first place. I'm going to go with Lucian. Cabinet. Lucian Gallade. In 1956, in a further testament to his political acumen and influence, Gallade was appointed as vice president by President Rain, marking a significant milestone in his political journey. Yeah, I'd say so. Swordfish League of Women donation. The most influential women's rights NGO, the Swordfish League of Women, is organizing a massive fundraising campaign to raise awareness in Swordfish society and has reached out to us personally for private donations. It's a prominent NGO. It is recognized its role in fostering gender equality, raising social awareness. They are just the Doom has called attention to pressing issues such as domestic violence and the gender wage gap. I mean, I do have one personal wealth again. Nice, you're insistent and looking to safeguard advanced women's rights. Alright, I'll donate my entire amount of money to them. That's fine by me. Rain makes donation to Swordfish League of Women. As the Swordfish woman continues to march for equality, Anton Rain showed his solidarity by donating a large sum to the Swordfish League of Women. This was not only a generous gesture, it marked the first time a president of Swordland acknowledged and personally supported the women's rights struggle. Reaching for comment, a spokeswoman from the league expressed her gratitude to Rain, while emphasizing the new policies will help the women's cause much more than finances. Anton Rain donates to support women. Will policies follow? Is it film washing or the real deal? President Rain made an unusually large out-of-pocket donation towards Swordfish League of Women, but has yet to budge on women's rights policies. I mean, I actually have. In fact, you've talked about it. Some of Rain's defenders argued that the issue has always been on his agenda, but had to take a back seat as other more urgent priorities sprang up during the first half of its term. That is true. That's also what happens with racism. This donation could be an indication that they're right, or an empty gesture meant to placate them without angering Rain's conservative base. Oh, I've given up on my conservative base. I've given up on re-election. We're doing what's right, baby. Get that worry of re-election out of here. Whatever. We're doing what's right, not what is smart. Lucian and I were on our way to my office. I was holding a mug of coffee in one hand and a folder of various documents in the other. As we turned to code, Lucian spoke. The Archchef anniversary is coming up soon. The most important day for the British populace. Watani Archchef is one of their symbols, as you know. Your presence at this event would show your desire for a more unified Swordland. We will reap the benefits if you decide to go, I'm sure. You're right. Lucian nodded. We rounded another corner to reach the last corridor leading to my office. Lucian suddenly stopped in front of one of the doors. The plague had once said Vice President Peter Vector had been removed. The door was halfway open, and I could see a few workers moving boxes around the room. One of them saw us, bowed his head, and changed the name tag on the door to Vice President Lucian Gallade. Another handyman dropped a heavy-looking box on the desk. A crunching sound was heard from within. Be careful with that, Mr. President. This move requires my personal attention. We shall discuss the Asheville matter later. It's good to have you as my Vice President, Lucian, and I'm glad to have you as my President, sir. I entered my office and asked Sylvia for a second cup of coffee to wake me up. Another long day was waiting for me. That was a short one. That was a really short one. Lucian Gallade rises to the task. Following the unforeseen departure of Peter Vector, as expected, President Rain has picked Lucian Gallade as his new president. Mr. Gallade is an enigmatic figure among the USP members. He is known to be highly efficient and a task-oriented individual that takes pride in honesty. As part of the Rain campaign and as chief strategist, he has years of experience working with President Rain. Mr. Gallade will begin serving his post immediately. Lucian Gallade is the vice president. It is official. Lucian Gallade is the new vice president of Swordland. Looking at this pic objectively, I catch myself thinking that, honestly, we all saw this coming. The man was working alongside President Rain for years. He is somewhat of a shadowy figure, as not much is known about his past, apart from his successes to rise to the top. Regardless, looking at his famed track record, we can say with certainty that Mr. Gallade will be a much better vice president than Peter Vector. Well, I'm glad you think so. Mediation of dispute in the Grand Army. I arrived in the city of Vesord with my new Vice President Lucian after receiving an emergency meeting request from Izaf and Lilius. I'd seen the reports of a recent issue that rose between the Swordish police force and Grand Army units at the city. The report said that an operation against a drug trafficking gang in Vesord failed due to miscommunication. It was not hard to guess what this meeting was going to be about. We entered the city hall and made our way to the second floor. I could hear Izaf and Lilius' voices echoing through the hall. I opened the doors to the meeting room. The two ministers did not realize. This is unacceptable. How dare the police meddle in the affairs of the Grand Army? It was your men who started this ridiculousness and meddled with an ongoing police investigation. Their voices were getting louder and louder. Rural security is my jurisdiction, and your men were way outside of Vesord. Mr. Lancia, Miss Gaff, please remain calm. What is the problem? Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, apologies, Miss Graff, here fails to understand her place. No, Mr. Lancia, you're the one who does not understand his place. If you continue to do so, you will pay for it one day. Don't worry, we will solve this conflict of interest. The issue has been in the back of my head for a long time, and now it caused real damage. Indeed, it has. All because of the exemplary behavior of your police. Lilius explained what happened. Mr. Grazer was tasked with the investigation of drug trafficking ring in downtown Vesord. We found the evidence of a drug stash located in the outskirts of the city. We had to act quickly to put an end to the criminals we have been watching for some time, so we immediately sent out police units to catch them and find the drugs in the compound. Mr. Lancia and his Grand Army did not notify us that they were also moving against the same target. As a result, criminals got away and we lost months of progress. Isn't there a line of communication between you? There is, but the Ministry of Defense decided to avoid notifying the police department about the planned raid. The same could be said about you, because the reports show that you knew about the gang and their stash in the countryside. I started tapping on the table with my fingers. How do we solve this issue so it never happens again? I think this was the last drop. Internal security matters should be handed to the Ministry of Interior completely. We are called the Ministry of Interior for a reason. We can't let any more screw-ups like this happen again. She looked at me. I want the Grand Army to be transferred to the Ministry of Interior. What? Woman, are you out of your mind? Izaf turned red with anger. He composed himself after a moment. Looking at it from the perspective of improving our internal security, I agree with Miss Graff. We would reap the benefits in the long term. Look, Mr. Gallade, I know you are new at this, but there's much more that you were not briefed about, but... Mr. Lancia, you are forgetting who I am. Ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. I won't hand over the Grand Army to her. Out of the question. Do you have a better solution, Izaf? Whatever operations overlap, we should engage at the lower rank with the local officers on both sides. We could work on establishing that, but it still doesn't change the wrong system that exists now. I want to remind you about your promise, Mr. President. I remember it very well. Don't you worry. That is relieving. What promise? Now I see what's going on here. Enlighten us. What is going on here, Izaf? Lily set us up to create this incident. Lilius bit her lips. What proof do you have? There is no way that the police has arrived at the right time of the month. A long search on the exact day and minute of the Grand Army raid. Let us take it down a notch with the accusations. This kind of accusation is unheard of. It's nonsense. If I were you, I wouldn't believe a word Mr. Lancia says, Mr. President. If you don't believe my word, believe this. If we decide to transfer the Grand Army and weaken our military further, I will not be responsible for what happens. I don't like the sound of that. Your threats will get you nowhere. What is your decision? The Grand Army will be transferred to the Ministry of Interior, even if I get assassinated for it. Izaf stood up and leaned forward. His eyes darkened and spoke softly. Mr. Rain, I am openly warning you. Don't do this. Listen to what I'm telling you. It is for your own good. Enough. I will not be threatened. I have already given my decision. I did all I could, Mr. President. Thank you for being a man of your word. It was the right call to establish a modern internal security structure. I want those criminals to be caught immediately. We have interrogated the ones caught and are after the other ones who have escaped. Don't worry, they will get the justice they deserve. I left the room to attend my next scheduled meeting. But I think this is a good time to go ahead and end this episode. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always, peace.